Everybody, today we're going to continue with our 3Racing crawler kit. We're going to be working on bag 2. Bag 2 has quite a few components and 5 pages of instructions. So what I'm going to do is break it down into 2 videos. We're watching part 1 right now. Alright, you can see here I opened the bags and I organized, I separated all the screws, pins, bearings and everything so that I know where everything is when I need to reach for it. All right, the first step is to put the pinion gear onto the motor, and this kit comes with a 16 tooth pinion, and this uses a motor mount plate similar to the TTO2, where it has the fixed holes for different pinion sizes. So for example, today we're going to be using the 16th hole here and there. So I'm going to line those up. It's a little tricky doing this because the printing's on this side and we actually need to put the plate on this side, but we'll manage. I'll just keep an eye on it and the next step is to put on this plate. And the screws go on to here and this hole right here. And the plate lines up this way and it goes on those 2 holes. Let's see, right there. And we're going to be using the 6mm again. So when you're done with this step, it looks like this. There we go. All right, for the next step, we're going to couple this inner gear and this adapter, and it just takes 4 screws. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, we're going to put this pin through there. As well, and I'm going to grease this when I know it's going inside a enclosure and that it's going to close. I usually don't like any kind of grease kind of floating around that I might smear and touch. All right, let's go on to the next step. Okay, next we need to put this gear assembly inside the housing, but first let's go ahead and put those 2 plates, those mounting plates on top. Get that out of the way. So real simple. Gonna line that up, and it's the 8mm screws. All right. Now we're going to put the shaft through here and put a bearing on the other side and make sure it seats like that. And we're going to put an E-clip right here. And I imagine it's going to be this one right here. I'm not sure how much work that's going to do. E-rings are always a little tricky. You can see that I have it positioned there, ready to go, and I'm just going to use a pair of pliers, and hopefully it doesn't fly away. And that's it. Okay, for the next step, we're going to start putting on some of the other pinion gears onto the shaft. And just a quick note, these pins are different lengths, so you need to be careful when you're using them. The one that was on the other side of this gear that locked into place was actually a 9mm one. So just make sure you're using the correct length. For this, again, I'm going to be using the 9mm one. And I'm going to start with the 26 tooth pinion gear. And I'm going to put in that pin first, so that pin can index to the back of that pinion gear. Just go ahead and turn it, make sure it sits. There we go. Next, we're going to put on 2 more of the E-clips. Okay, after you put on the first E-clip, don't put on the second one yet. Put on the 20 tooth pinion gear. Then put on one of the 8mm pins. Index that into the pinion gear. Now is the time to use the E-clip underneath. This is a little bit tricky. There we go. And that's it. I'm not going to lift this in place just yet until I'm ready with the motor, because I do have that one small pin on the other side. So the next step is to couple this with the motor that we already put together, and we're going to use 4 of these 6mm screws. Before I put it together, I do need to go ahead and put grease on that inner gear now, since it's going to be closed up. I'll take some of this ceramic grease. We really have no way to check how far down the stem that if I did it correctly or not on the motor pinion gear, but it looks like everything is working, and we're just going to have to trust it. Again, it's just 4 of the 6mm screws from this side. Okay, and it looks something like this after it's assembled. Let's finish the last step of page 5. We're going to start with putting this shift pin through the shift bar. But first, let's go ahead and put on the E-clips for the back. And it is not symmetrical, so you need to make sure there's a larger opening right here, larger section right there. And I'm going to put a pin right here through that groove. Right now we're going to push this shift bar through and then close it, secure it in place with another pin here in front of it. And there you go. All right, the last step is to build this shaft, and there's quite a few components to it, and I've lined it up all here. You can start with a 10 by 4mm bearing, an E-clip, and then a 8 by 2.5mm bearing. This is the 40 tooth bearing gear. Another small bearing, E-clip. This is the transfer nut, small bearing. 34 tooth bearing gear, small bearing. Another E-clip, and then a larger bearing at the end. And we're going to make sure the spline is facing that direction. So here we go. All right, first I've secured the 34 tooth gear with a E-clip on the front and back. Make sure you put the bearings in there. The next step is to put in the transfer nut, and then that exposes a groove for the second E-clip, or the third E-clip. Let me go ahead and push that through. All right, when you're done and you've done it correctly, it should look something like this. This transfer nut is going to be coupled with this right here, and when the servo moves back and forth, that's how we change gears. These will lock into the grooves of either the 40 or the 34 tooth bearing gear here, and when the shaft is spinning, you can change gears. And when it locks in, it will either engage the 34 or the 40, thus changing the gear and changing the speed of the truck. So it's pretty neat. That's how that works, and I'm looking forward to putting it together. Make sure you put the 2 bearings in there like that. That is the final 2 bearings right there. And that concludes this video. We're going to work on page 6, 7, and 8, which is to finish the bulkhead assembly in the next video. Thanks for watching. Hope you like this video. Drop a thumbs up. Subscribe for more. I'll see you guys in the next one.